Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the FBI says it has gained access to data on the cell phone of the man who tried to assassinate former President Donald Trump. And severe storms and multiple tornadoes caused devastation across the Midwest overnight.
Temperatures today were in the 90s once again. Now we have some thunderstorms pushing its way through eastern Kentucky. We'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Dedicated to southern and eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. We begin tonight with some breaking news out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. One person has been shot and killed in the downtown area, but outside of the perimeter of the Republican National Convention. Sources say the incident happened this morning and Ohio officers were the ones that did the shooting. According to Brian Steele, president of the Fraternal Order of Police, Capital City Lodge Number 9, Columbus police officers in town that were added security for the RNC were involved in that shooting. No other information has been released. Steele did confirm that no officers were injured. Well, night one of the Republican National Convention was quite a memorable one for the GOP. The night included the formal nomination of former President Donald Trump. Of course, he had a bandage on his ear, as you see there. It was Trump's first public appearance since the assassination attempt that happened this past weekend. Several prominent lawmakers and officials from the GOP spoke on day one of the convention. And of course, we learned who his VP pick is. More on that tonight at 6. And we'll have more on day two of the RNC tonight during CBS News live coverage at 10 p.m. here on WYMT. And of course, a wrap up tonight on Mountain News at 11. New post-debate polling finds Donald Trump leading President Biden in 4 out of 7 key states. Trump is ahead in Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and North Carolina. In Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, the race is within the margin of error with no clear leader. The polls were conducted by YouGov and sponsored by the Times of London and a group of researchers from Stanford, Arizona State, and Yale, known as SAY24. An intelligence source tells CBS News protection for former President Trump had been enhanced recently after the intelligence community picked up an increase in chatter about an Iranian assassination plot. But there is no known connection between the Iranian threat and Saturday's shooting at a campaign rally in western Pennsylvania. The 20-year-old shooter killed one person, grazed the former president's ear with a bullet, and wounded 2 others before he was shot and killed. CBS's Charlie DeMar is in Butler, Pennsylvania with the latest on the investigation.
New details are emerging about the moments right before a gunman opened fire at Saturday's campaign rally, injuring former President Donald Trump. A local law enforcement officer with direct knowledge of the incident told CBS News 3 snipers from local tactical teams were stationed inside the building the shooter used in his attack. At one point, one of the snipers spotted the gunman, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, sitting outside the building looking at his phone, and took a photo. After the sniper observed Crooks looking through a rangefinder and immediately radioed to the command post. When Crooks was spotted again with a backpack, the officer called for backup, but by the time the officer responded, the gunman had scaled the building. The House Committee on Homeland Security announced it will hold a hearing next week on the circumstances surrounding the attack.
There are going to be independent investigations on that.
On CBS Mornings, Trump's senior advisor, Jason Miller, declined to comment on calls for the head of the Secret Service to step down.
I do know that President Trump very much respects and values the Secret Service team that is around him and credits his being alive to them.
The FBI says it has been able to gain access into the shooter's phone, but sources telling CBS News at this point they haven't been able to glean any information that could reveal a possible motive.
Outside the Buffalo Township Volunteer Fire Company Tuesday, people came to pay their respects to former Fire Chief Corey Comparator, who was killed during the assassination attempt. Charlie DeMar, CBS News, Butler, Pennsylvania.
2 other people who were wounded in the attack, 57-year-old Marine Corps veteran David Dutch and 74-year-old James Copenhaver, remain in stable condition. Jack Black's Tenacious D bandmate Kyle Gass has sparked outrage. The controversy comes after Gass made an apparent joke about the assassination attempt against former President Trump. At the comedy rock band's concert in Sydney, Australia Sunday, Black presented Gass with a birthday cake. He told him to make a wish. Gass responded, quote, "Don't miss Trump next time." An Australian lawmaker is now demanding their visas be revoked and they get deported. Jack Black has also canceled their tour. A federal court jury in New York has convicted Senator Robert Menendez of accepting bribes of cash, gold, and a luxury car from 3 New Jersey businessmen and acting as a foreign agent for the Egyptian government. Menendez was found guilty on all 16 federal counts against him, including bribery, extortion, fraud, and obstruction of justice. 2 co-defendants also were found guilty on all charges. The jury returned its verdict after 3 days of deliberations.
This wasn't politics as usual, this was politics for profit. And now that a jury has convicted Bob Menendez, his years of selling his office to the highest bidder have finally come to an end.
I have never violated my public oath. I have never been anything but a patriot of my country and for my country. I have never, ever been a foreign agent.
Menendez says he will appeal the verdict. Yesterday, a Moscow court convicted in absentia Russian-American journalist and author Masha Gessen for criticizing the Russian military. They were charged with disseminating false information about the armed forces and sentenced to 8 years in prison, according to the Moscow court. The indictment stemmed from a 2022 YouTube interview with blogger Yuri Dud about Russia's military actions in Ukraine.
We're seeing a line of showers and thunderstorms pushing its way through eastern Kentucky. Here's the latest with live pinpoint Doppler radar at this hour, and you can see they're starting to fire up now just to the north and east of Jackson over towards portions of Magoffin County, a little bit of Morgan County, Elliott County. Seeing some thunderstorm activity as well. We'll go ahead and pinpoint a couple of locations here. And again, let's take a look here now over towards portions of Magoffin and Floyd County. Seeing that line of shower and thunderstorm activity being picked up just to the south and east of West Liberty along portions, it looks like, of Highway 460 near the Maggard, the Lickburg area, the LC area, seeing some heavy rain and thunderstorm activity as well. Another area we're keeping an eye on is over towards the London Corbin area, where we're seeing a line of thunderstorms pushing its way through at this time. Now, some of these are producing a little bit of hail. We'll talk about that coming up in a few minutes. But right now in Hazard, we have a mixture of sun and clouds. Temperatures, with the exception of Wise at 75, in the 80s and 90s. London's at 83. That's a rain-cooled 83. The majority of us seeing temperatures in the 90s. When you wake up in the morning, we'll see temperatures in the upper 60s and low 70s. And finally, we have some relief in terms of temperature. We'll talk about that in the first alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, Eric, thanks. Severe storms and multiple tornadoes caused devastation across the Midwest overnight. The storms cut a path of destruction that downed trees and cut power to hundreds of thousands of Chicago area residents. Almost 330,000 outages were reported in Illinois, as well as 188,000 in Indiana. Tornadoes also touched down in Chicago Sunday, a relatively rare event. Before Sunday, only 6 had been reported in the last 70 years. A federal appeals court has found Minnesota's ban on 18 to 20-year-olds getting a permit to publicly carry a handgun unconstitutional. The Republican-appointed 3-judge panel ruled the 2003 state law violates both the Second Amendment and the 14th Amendment. The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals decision concurred with a lower federal court ruling that the Minnesota law was unconstitutional. Andrew Tate, a self-proclaimed misogynist influencer, and his brother Tristan have been banned from leaving Romania. The Tate brothers were indicted in June along with 2 Romanian citizens on charges of human trafficking, rape, and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women. Claims they deny. Romanian prosecutors claim the Tate brothers seduced victims by falsely claiming they wanted a relationship or to marry them. The Biden administration is marking the 2-year anniversary of the nation's revamped suicide and crisis hotline. It has an easy-to-remember number, 988, that works like 911. The Department of Health and Human Services says 988 counselors have answered more than 10 million calls, texts, and chats since the launch on July 16, 2022. The HHS has invested nearly $1.5 billion into it. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, on average, moving customers lost around $836 to scams last year. What to watch out for and some of the most common ones.
And I'm keeping an eye on some scattered showers and thunderstorms pushing through eastern Kentucky. We'll pinpoint those in a few minutes. Stay with us.